Good afternoon, everybody. How's it going? Come on. I want to hear that big clap as we start. A big clap, everybody. That's how you call a clap. Good afternoon. I'm so excited to be here today, to be in Seattle, beautiful Seattle today, and representing the outstanding work of the teams that are building Copilot connectors. Did anybody ever use a Copilot connector? Now I'm going to ask another question. Anybody ever used a graph connector? Well, they're the same, so just so you know. So today we're going to talk a lot about how we can add more knowledge to Microsoft 365 Copilot with Copilot connectors, but also how can we make that even more useful for your users with adding actions to this. So let's go on. My name is Sébastien. I'm a product manager on the agent developer platform here at Microsoft on the Copilot, the Microsoft 365 Copilot ecosystem, and I'm really glad to be here. So Microsoft 365 Copilot has been transforming orgs across the world and on how they really access their data. People are now using Copilot to start with. They go in, they talk to Copilot, they ask questions, and you can get data from their internal data sources, right? From emails, chats, documents, Dataverse, a bunch of different places. But we want to make that a little bit more useful. What is inside M365 is awesome. We all say that. But your most critical data sometimes will live outside of the Microsoft 365 boundaries, right? You want to index that data. You want to be able to ask the question, when is this order coming in? How can I know, how can I get information about this ticket or this live site issue? But that data doesn't live inside Microsoft 365. And that is why we have some capabilities in Copilot that enables you to extend the capabilities of Copilot by default. One of them is Copilot connectors that allow you to connect any type of third-party system, either ones you're building yourself, in-house CRM, in-house databases that you have, or maybe third-party data, ServiceNow, Jira, Confluence. All of these can now be fully understood within Copilot when they're connected inside Microsoft 365. And today we're going to bring you onto a journey on how you can get from the simplest scenario, go into Copilot, adding data, to really go inside Visual Studio Code and bring your own data, connect to your own data sources with real code, and plug that directly inside Microsoft 365. And then what can we do with that? Well, maybe we can act on that data. It's great to know that an issue was assigned to me, but I prefer when I can assign it to somebody else. So we're going to see how we can actually do that today. When you think about Copilot and Copilot connectors, Copilot really understands your data estate, the one that lives in Microsoft 365. But when you bring connected data, now the same data that lives in the outside world now is being understood the same way directly inside Microsoft 365. And that's why we really think that this is extremely powerful. We're going to do a ton of demos later on where you're going to see the value of all of that. Copilot is the UI for AI. It delivers a unified, intelligent experience across M365 and beyond. And that's why we really believe that your experience to connect your third-party data should start with Copilot. Let's see an example here. A partner called 𝗬𝗲𝗃𝗃 is helping bridging the content generation problem. How many times do you have to create a template, a PowerPoint presentation, for example, based on a template and respect all your guidelines? I can tell you that by building this deck, it was a challenge today. So how can we have Copilot connector data help with that? So let's see. Let's roll the video. I'm going to talk through it. So for example, here, we have people starting and just opening up PowerPoint. There you go. And trying a new presentation. What you can do with Copilot connectors is to connect third-party brand guidelines directly inside Microsoft 365 Copilot. So when you create a presentation, it's going to reuse all of the different assets that your organization wants you to use, all the guidelines, the way you want to frame your slides, directly inside PowerPoint. So we're enriching the entire ecosystem of data. So not only you can use that inside Copilot, but you can use that inside Copilot for PowerPoint. You can use that inside Copilot for Word, for instance. And in this case, maybe you're not a big fan of one of the artifacts that was generated. So maybe in this case, I want to go in and select an artifact and change it on the fly, thanks to some of the capabilities that Templify offer to their users using that beautiful Office add-in that is right there on the right. It adds a ton of value. It makes the entire review process more efficient when you're asking your marketing partners or your internal partners on, hey, can you review my deck and make sure it's all fine? That's like one great scenario that we have here. But what I'd love here is to kind of shout out that now we have more than 65 connectors that are connecting to the most popular data sources in the 3P ecosystem. All of them are really building incredible insights inside Copilot. For example, Gong, PagerDuty, Unity are standing out as leaders in these domains. Gong bring deep expertise in revenue intelligence, and we're going to see more later. We also have PagerDuty that enhances the operational responsiveness by integrating with real-time incident data straight into Copilot. And Unity empowers people to have better internal communications. So you can already use them today. So if you see any of these logos and you have any systems that your organization depends deeply on, you can already go into some of the capabilities we have and create yourself a connection to start ingesting that data. So now I would love to introduce Rachit on stage. I will start, and we're going to start to get our hands a little bit dirty and see what is this experience that we have here. So Rachit, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I hope you're having an amazing build so far. So I'm going to be diving straight into the code and demos today. That's what build is about, right? But first, we're going to start in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. I'm going to show you the simplest way to get set up with a Copilot connector. So I'm going to start. I'm going to go to Settings. I'm going to go to Search and Intelligence. And here, we're going to integrate our ServiceNow knowledge base into Microsoft 365 Copilot. So all I have to do is go into Data Sources, click Add Connection, search for ServiceNow knowledge. And this is a live demo because it's built. We love live demos. Go click on Search ServiceNow knowledge, click Next. I can give it a display name. I can also give it the URL of my instance, which I have conveniently copied. I have an authentication method here. Here, I will go over to my ServiceNow instance, and I can copy over my client ID, and oops, boom, and then paste in my secret, and I click Authorize. And what this is going to do is going to connect to ServiceNow. You can specify a callback URL inside your ServiceNow settings, and boom, you're authenticated. And then the next step, all you have to do is click Create. You also have a custom setup here where you can actually specify your connection, the users who have access to your connection, and boom, we created the connection. And now you can provide a description to Copilot that enables it to choose, to be able to actually choose your connector data in a query. So let's click Save and Done. And now we're going to head over to Copilot and see this data in action. So I'm going to ask a question. What are my travel policies? And what this is going to do is going to go through all the search. It's going to do a search, and it's going to look through all the data that's in the tenant. And once this is done, boom, we have the ServiceNow data here, indexed and ready to be semantically queried. If I click here, it would actually open that particular knowledge article where I can look and understand all the details about the travel policy. And that's the simplest way you can get started with a ServiceNow connector. I will hand it back to Seb now.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachit. So let me go back here. Let me take back the screen here. So what is really, really cool is that within basically 1 or 2 clicks, we were able to get a new connection set up that brings all your data. Now, what are some of the really cool announcements we're doing at Build? The first one, I kind of already hinted on it. We have now 65 Microsoft Build connectors that you can start from. If you don't have, if that is not enough for you, we're going to talk about that later. But you can already start getting your hands dirty already today with 65 different data sources. We're also introducing our quick setup. A quick setup is a simplified version of the experience that Rachit just showed, meaning that it's a couple of very simple information you need to provide to Copilot, and then afterwards it does all the work for you. So it takes literally, and that's exactly what happened earlier, it takes a minute to get your data in, and that is absolutely awesome. If you've ever been in that space, you had a couple of announcements in the last couple of years around limits. Well, there's no more limits. You can have as many connections, as many items are indexed directly inside Microsoft 365, so you can bring your most critical data sources in without really caring about how big that data will be. Very soon, you will also be able to use knowledge scoping. What is knowledge scoping? It means that as part of the connector data you're bringing in, you will be able to identify slices of that data. For example, for Azure DevOps, I only care about these 2 projects or that area path. And then I will be able to build agents that are super focused on a specific thing to make you as productive as possible. And finally, as you've seen, we're now rolling out Copilot Search. And Copilot connectors are now fully integrated directly inside Copilot Search. So as part of the rest of your data, you will be able to semantically search for content, and whatever is available to you will be shown, including third-party connectors like these ones. So now I want to invite on stage Eran Aloni, EVP of Product Strategy and Ecosystem at Gong, to share with us their journey with building with Copilot connectors.
Hey, Sébastien.
Hey, Eran.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today. As Sébastien mentioned, I lead our product strategy and ecosystem team, and super happy to be here. Love the energy in the room.
So, Eran, I want us to ground in what you guys are doing. So, can you kind of tell me what Gong exactly do, and how you can share some examples of how your customers were more efficient with the Copilot connectors you've been building?
Yeah, of course. So Gong is a revenue AI platform. We analyze and inject customer conversations such as emails, phone calls, web conferencing sessions, as well as data from our partners, such as digital engagement signals or CRM data. And then we use AI and agents to analyze this data, provide very deep insights to our customers about their revenue workflows, and help them automate their revenue workflows as well. We have 3 products built on that platform. Gong Engage allows our customers to better onboard, train, coach, and improve the skill sets of their teams. Gong Engage allows customers to better engage with their own customers. And Gong Forecast allows them to manage their pipeline, their deals, and have better forecast accuracy. We have close to 5,000 B2B customers worldwide, and we help them shorten their sales cycle, increase their deal conversion rate, their deal size, and generally speaking, get better productivity from their sales team. We started this journey 10 years ago with a simple realization that if you let people manually enter data into the CRM, you get very little data and very subjective data. And we realized that using AI to analyze customer conversation is really the foundation layer to a modern revenue platform. And that was, again, 10 years ago, before AI was hip or cool. We actually were not supposed to say the word AI for a few years of our existence. We pioneered and started the conversation intelligence category at 2016, kind of evolved it into revenue AI today. But our vision, really similar to Microsoft, is to have an autonomous revenue platform that really drives a lot of the revenue motions forward.
That is awesome. That is so exciting. I just want to use that. We're bringing back to Copilot, and what are you building in terms of connectors and how that all integrates inside the workflow that lives inside Copilot?
Yeah. So the Gong Copilot Connector brings both Gong data and insights directly into Copilot and Copilot Studio. So what that means is that users can now get much better answers to their questions about their deals, about their customers, what's preventing them from moving forward. And you can build really great autonomous agents with Copilot Studio and Gong data to manage your workflow. So for example, you can have a very simple agent send a Teams message to every one of your sales people every Monday morning with their key deals. What are the action items that they committed to? What's blocking the deal? What type of objections they have? So that really grounds them to do what they need to do most instead of spending hours going through notes and asking people around what's really happening on those deals.
That is awesome. And why did you choose the Copilot platform? Like, why did you choose to integrate with us?
Yeah, for us, there was really two main things that got us really excited about this partnership with Microsoft. One, the platform is such an amazing platform. It's so capable that it really allowed us to do a lot with our data in the platform. And the second is a lot of our customers are already using a lot of the Microsoft products today, whether it's Outlook, Teams, Office, or Dynamics. So connecting our data to where they already use or they spend a lot of their time today was really a win-win and adds a lot of value to our customers today.
That is awesome. In the room right now, there's a couple of devs that wants to kind of get some tips and tricks, and your team has been going through that. And so what would be your tips for devs to work with these type of Copilot connectors?
Yeah. I think first is always start with the customer, meaning you probably have a lot of data, but I would focus on the data that your users could really use when they're not engaging directly with your app. Right? So you have users that may not go into your app every day, all day long. They still, when they ask a question, you want to surface the right information for them to get the answer, maybe send them back into your app to continue the workflow. Then number two, which is something that's really important, make sure that you align your own permission mechanisms and security mechanism with Copilots to ensure that when users ask a question in Copilot, it's grounded only on the data that they're supposed to see.
That is, I couldn't have said it better. To me, the permission part is the most amazing thing we can do in Copilot. So I want to thank you so much for being here today with us. Everybody, a round of applause for Eran Aloni.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eran. So I want to now focus on one topic that you might have heard about this week. It's about agents. Have you heard about agents? No hands as raised. That's good. So today we want to focus on that, on agents, and how they're really providing critical value for your users in the Microsoft 365 Copilot world. So we're going to focus on declarative agents today. Declarative agents are the agents you can create in Copilot Studio, in Agent Builder, or in the Microsoft 365 Agents Toolkit, and they really play a foundational role in the Copilot ecosystem. They allow you to ground your responses in specific data, including OneDrive, SharePoint content, websites, Copilot connectors. You can also bring your own custom actions later on. But really, what we want to look at right now is how grounding responses drive tons of value for your end users. Well, it's designed to ensure that the insights that you see are not only good, but that they're focused on the job to be done. when you decide to focus on a couple of connectors or even on a subset of, of a slice of your connector, well, you're going to be a lot more effective. If I ask, what are the tasks that are assigned to me in the entirety of all my organization compared to what are the tasks that are assigned to me in the context of a specific project, it's going to be very different. The way I'm going to be able to be productive is going to be very different. So we really feel that grounding responses in agents is kind of the key for the users, and it's super simple for end users to actually create their own agents grounded in that data. So what about if we bring Rachit back and we're adding the same knowledge we had earlier to a help desk agent that will ground all of that data for us? Rachit,
amazing. Thank you, Seb. Seb just keeps bringing me back for more fun stuff. So we left off in Copilot, just a bit of a recap. And how many of you have built an agent with Agent Builder? Okay, that's a good amount of people. So you should be familiar with this. So I've transformed into Sébastien, and I'm going to create a new agent. So all I have to do is actually go into M365 Copilot and click Create Agent. That opens up the Agent Builder interface. And here I have two options. I can either describe my agent in a chat interface, or I can configure it. So today we're going to build a ServiceNow, oops. You know it's live when you make typos. ServiceNow Help Desk, that's a good name. This agent helps with understanding ServiceNow articles. Good enough for now. Here's where the magic happens. So you can specify your own instructions. I have a notepad in here, and I'm going to paste it in really quickly. This is where we specify details like what the agent is, give it a sense of identity, have a set of guidelines. So every time a user talks about items or articles, refer to them as ServiceNow articles in the knowledge base. We also wanted to refer to the connector that we just created and create a bunch of, when the user requests specific items, it can give it details on how to format it. So here we can provide details like if there's no data for a column, you can leave it blank. The first column should only contain the citation and details like that. And here's the good part. Here's where you add the knowledge to ground your agent. So we just made this. This is the ServiceNow knowledge. So we're going to select that. And we also have capabilities like code interpreter and image generator. And you can also specify a list of starter prompts. So I'm going to click Create, and that's going to do its thing. But I luckily have something ready already. So now we're going to ask a question like, summarize articles by knowledge and by topic. So I want you to think about this in the audience. If you were given this task by yourself, what would it take? I'm assuming you would have to somehow ingest all the knowledge articles, summarize it, categorize it. Now, with this data right inside Copilot, without leaving Copilot, you're able to get a nice little summary of all the different articles that are available in ServiceNow, along with citations to what it points to. Then I can also ask questions like, how do I submit an expense report? I probably have to do a bunch of that after this conference, so that would be super helpful for me instead of having to navigate through complicated internal systems. I get it right here, a set of 4 steps I can do to actually submit the expense report, and this is all grounded in the real data from ServiceNow that we saw. So I will pass it back to Seb now to show you how our customers are actually using this in action.
Awesome, thank you so much, Rachit. So I'm back to my slides. Am I mic on? Yes, I am. So now let's go see how some of our customers are building connectors that then ends up as agents in their customers, and how it really makes them super successful. So let's start right now with Unily and their employee engagement platform.
In this demo, we'll showcase the new BRK Connector and how Unily and Microsoft customers are driving smarter, faster decisions. Configured with just a few clicks, importantly, the connector respects all existing user permissions. 𝗦𝗲𝗲 becomes part of your work data, delivering real-time responses and giving employees instant access to relevant up-to-date content from their employee experience platform. Let's imagine I'm a new employee in internal comms and I ask Copilot what I should know. Copilot recognizes my role and summarizes key onboarding resources and videos for me. Here, with the prompt, "Can you provide more details on our customer satisfaction rates?" we're demoing how 𝗦𝗲𝗲 and Copilot together turn scattered customer data into actionable insights. From insight to impact at speed, the 𝗦𝗲𝗲 Graph Connector means every team can move smarter and faster.
This is awesome. This makes everybody more productive. There's nothing more frustrating than changing team and having no clue how to start, where are the resources. Well, now you can just ask your best buddy, in this case, the 𝗦𝗲𝗲 agent, to really get started. Now let's look onto what 𝗬𝗲𝗃 Insights, a trend market data partner, has partnered up with Takeda, an R&D Fortune 500 leader in the science industry that has partnered and that are really enhancing the decision-making with Microsoft Copilot. So let's go through this demo together. So first, maybe I want to ask a broad question about lung cancer. And now it's coming back, it's going to combine the latest 𝗬𝗲𝗃 Insights market trends with external data that will now provide new perspective and insights that would have not been possible to actually get directly from anything. Like, it's super powerful, right? As we delve into that, we begin to comprehend really the impact of this. And with the researcher agent that's coming up and how it's going to all bring that together, it's going to be perfect. Given Copilot's unique capability of being integrated across all the tools, Copilot is also in Word. So think about, like, I continue my research in Word, and then I can bring some of that data to drive more efficiency by literally building a report directly from this. And then I can see all the references, and I can insert that content to be my starting point for my document. And like, you can do so many things with this. You can rewrite, and then you can really take that into full advantage. From there, you build your doc. What if I was going to PowerPoint, I say, hey, I need a deck for that because I need to present on that topic to my leadership. Well, that's exactly what we're doing here. And we're still grounded inside the Copilot connector that was used to drive all of that market data and all of that research. So it definitely represents a huge advancement in Takeda use of data-driven intelligence, and it really makes them above the curve in the innovation space. So congrats to 𝗦𝗲𝗲 and to Takeda and 𝗬𝗲𝗃 Insights. Thanks for those demos. It's awesome. A little bit of round of applause here, everybody. Awesome. So we discussed about everything that we have. Data is available as a first party or as Microsoft build connectors. But we all have that database that we rely on. We don't know exactly where the database is, but it powers so many things in our organizations. I would like to be able to bring that data in to help us. We also have a bunch of APIs to our own internal systems that we want to bring in. So there's definitely an opportunity for developers to bring more data, more context directly inside Microsoft 365 through the use of Copilot Connector. So that's where we're really shifting now from the connectors we provide by default in the experience to bring your own data, any data. To help you do that, as part of the Microsoft 365 Agents Toolkit announcement we've done this week, we're also introducing capability to support building custom connectors right out of the box within the Agents Toolkit. You will get that tooling that's going to enable you to start really, really rapidly. Within 5 minutes, you're going to be able to start seeing data inside Copilot, all of that using the Microsoft Graph API. You can connect to your own REST API, and if you want to customize our template even further, you can connect to any type of data. You're going to get a really, really faster inner loop because we're going to automate all the different steps for you. You won't have to go through all of like a ton of manual steps to get that working. As a dev, you're going to be able to go in, create, F5, done. So what if we were bringing you on a journey of creating that and seeing real code in that demo? So Rachit, come on back up and let's do that.
All right, let's see some code. Who's excited? All right, okay, so I need to switch first. All right, enough of the boring UI stuff. Let's go into Visual Studio Code. I have the Microsoft 365 Agents Toolkit extension open. And what I'm going to do is, Seb said really quickly, Seb said 5 minutes. That's an ambitious goal. It won't be quite 5 minutes, but it will be close. So let me show you. We do create a new app, and then Copilot Connector. In this case, I'm going to be using an example where I will be ingesting data from a CRM that I have behind a REST API that has data about repairs, specifically relevant to my business, which is a mechanic shop. So I'm going to call it repair CRM sample, and I would have to specify a connector ID. In here, this is where you have to enter an ID that's unique to your tenant. We do have some validation. So for example, if I enter less than 3 characters, I get told that that's not a valid connector ID. So we have some real-time validation here on the client. So I'm going to call it repair CRM. I'm going to choose a default folder. And boom, it's going to scaffold all the code I need to get started. So now what this does is actually uses a sample API and scaffolds everything you need to build a connector. I took some time to customize this beforehand, so I'm going to walk you through it. So note the highlights. This is really fancy, so wish me luck. I'm trying this out. So essentially, you start with an Azure function project, and so this starts with doing a full crawl. So first it will check if the connection is ready, and then if it is, it will go ahead and start a full crawl. And what that does is ingests all the data from your API into the graph. Now let's go step by step. So step 1, you have to create the connection. This is where you connect to the graph API. Here's where we make the call. And we provide the connector ID, the name, the description, all that good stuff. And this is how we tell Graph that, hey, we're going to create a connection. Then we register a schema. This is where we tell Copilot, what is the shape of the data that I need ingested? And I will show you exactly how you define it in the next step, but we register the schema. Here is the schema.json file. Here's where you see all the goodness. So this is all our properties that are that make up a repair. So you have a repair ID, title, description. This can get complicated depending on the data source you use. They also have what's called semantic labels. So these things is queryable, searchable, retrievable. This is what tells Copilot how to actually find those properties once the data is ingested. Everyone following? And then we have the item interface, this is our TypeScript. It's confusing because we're going to introduce something later that's very similar. So I'm glad I didn't make that mistake. But this is where we define the interface of the item. So it's essentially a mirror of that schema.json file, but in code. And finally, the good stuff. Here's where we actually connect to the repairs. I just want to remind you that all of this complexity has been scaffolded for you, as I showed in the previous step. So all you have to do is just customize this to your needs. So in this case, we're calling a bunch of, if we're calling an API that will get all the repairs. And of course, we have to map the responses. So we have to map the response from the API response to our internal model that we just showed a few steps ago. And this is exactly how we do it. We have a function for that. And that is all you need. So wish me luck. I have done my prayers before this demo. So I'm hoping we can get it going. So this is live. I just hit run. And what this is going to do behind the scenes, it's going to install all the dependencies. It's going to create an enter app. Wow, that was faster than expected. And it's going to do the 3 steps that I just described, which was creating the connection, then registering the schema, calling the API, mapping the items, and then finally ingesting it into the graph. And yeah, all of this is done for you, so you just have to customize it to your needs.
This is awesome. So now I see that we have like Azure Function stuff happening, like Azure Function local. So is that ready to be deployed in any Azure environment, for instance?
Yes, of course. So we scaffold everything you need for Azure. In this case, we're running locally, but you can also choose to connect to your Azure account and deploy. And we're already starting to actually ingest the items here. So we see that we're actually putting the items one by one, and these are all the properties. And this is the actual items going into the graph. So now, while this happens, let us go into Copilot. And we are going to test this out live. So I'm going to say, and keep in mind that you can also go into the Search and Intelligence Center here, and you can see that my connection was created. This is a connection that I just created before this demo, but you can see that in here, there are 12 items indexed, and we have a connection ID, and we have a name. So let's go back into Copilot, and we're going to ask, moment of truth, what are the 5 latest repairs? So the API was essentially just ingesting things like oil change, tire service, brake repairs. And as you can see, we have a bunch of items that are returned by Copilot. Amazing. And we have the citations that show that these were external items that we just ingested. So that is how, it's a very simple example, but we start simple, and then we give you all the tools to be able to extend this to meet your own use case of how to bring the data from outside of Microsoft 365 and outside of the pre-built connectors that we provide you into the graph. Now you may ask the question, this doesn't look right. What if I want to update something? And so Seb will tell you about that now.
Absolutely. So first, it was less than 5 minutes. I want to make the record straight. We were good. It was all working, and I'm happy to have a demo live that is, now I'm not going to say it's flawless so far, because I know we're going to break it later. But let's see. So I'm really happy to see that. So I think what is really important with the availability of the custom connector scaffolding in Agents Toolkit is that now, as a developer, you can really get started super quickly. If you want to try things, you want to hack, you want to show the value to your manager and how you could really gain from having access to that data, it's really, really powerful. But as Rachit said, what if we wanted to do more than that? Copilot connectors are really around grounding your data, grounding your responses in the data that you're bringing in. But what if you want to do things that are going out? So we want to make our agent become more than just a regular chatbot. We want to give the power of doing things on our behalf. Cool, I have a citation. That's awesome. I can click on the citation, get to the system. That gets me another click. I need to find the right field. I need to go and assign somebody. No, I want to do that straight into Copilot. I want to say, assign that to Rachit, and call it done. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. Custom actions are either APIs you own or that you connect to through third-party APIs. But they can also be a Power Platform connector. So if you're building inside the Power Platform using Copilot Studio, you can also use a lot of the Power Platform connector to do exactly that. You can also roll out your own custom connector in a Power Platform connector inside the Power Platform to also take all the benefits from this. Together, Copilot connectors and actions, they create a really amazing and powerful loop. And I want to kind of go deeper a little bit on some of the announcements we have this week around actions specifically inside Microsoft 365 Copilot. First, we have a ton of improvements. The first one is instruction following accuracy. Now you can literally describe an almost deterministic workflow and Copilot will follow it. So think about it. Now you can literally code with language, have some conditions, have some real process as part of your instructions, and Copilot will do everything it can to make it happen. That is awesome. We're seeing incredible results internally, and that is currently rolling out. The second platform improvement is that Copilot now supports bulk actions. So if you say, get me my tickets, but also all the customers that are assigned or related to these tickets, Copilot will be able to go and do that for you. It's not going to just say, give me my tickets, and then end there. No, it's going to be able to do multiple API calls as it's happening, and it's going to combine all of that together into a single response. Super powerful. Finally, we're going to retain context across multi-turn conversations. So now that you are going forward, you're creating something, or you're asking questions to Copilot, if a piece of data has been made available to your conversation, it's going to be made available to your next chat also. So let's say, give me all the tickets that are assigned to me. Then you start on some other conversation, and then you just say, assign the oil change ticket to Rachit. It's going to go and understand all of that context within the current conversation, which is extremely powerful. Next, we're announcing the private preview of MCP support directly inside Declarative Agent Actions. That means that you will be able to point your actions to a hosted MCP server that will provide the tools and functions you need to really fully make your agent being able to do things. And finally, as devs, you will now be able to use a new language, a language called TypeSpec, that will enable you to build declarative agents in a fully typed way. So far, it's been a lot of JSON files editing that you had to do as a pro dev. Now we're bringing a full language that supports these capabilities. That's pretty cool. That's what we're going to do a little bit later right now with the demo. So Rachit, why don't you come in and kind of close the demo spree with closing the loop on acting on the data we just ingested.
Yeah, there I am. So I'm back again. I promised for the last time for this session. So we're going to go back to Visual Studio Code and inside your favorite place in the world, Microsoft 365 Agents Toolkit. And I'm going to now create a declarative agent. So I'm going to choose start with TypeSpec, not TypeScript, TypeSpec for Microsoft 365 Copilot. Choose my folder. And like Seb said, he always wants to assign every single issue to me. So today I'm going to get him back, and I'm going to assign everything back to him. So I'm going to call it repairs action sample. Naming is hard because I have so many projects open, and eventually it conflicts. But this time, not. And this scaffolded everything you need to get started. Essentially, your agent is made up of two major files here. Here's the main file, and this is what was just scaffolded for me, and then the action files. So let me go through this in detail in this project right here, which I took some time to customize. So back with the fancy highlighting. This is my first time trying this, by the way, so I'm glad it's working smoothly, knock on wood. We have the agent name and the description right here. And then we have the instructions. And this is a very simple set of instructions. In the previous agent, you saw how complex that they could get. It's essentially natural language is your canvas here to help the model go in the direction you want it to. So here's my instructions. I can also add conversation starters. And notice that if you have used the JSON files before in the Agents Toolkit, you will notice that this is a lot more convenient with the decorators that we have. And here's the interesting part. So here's where I actually created a connection to that connector that we just made a few minutes ago. this was that repair CRM where I ingested all the repairs into the graph. And so now what I'm telling my agent is to be grounded in that data. And now for the juicy stuff. Here's where you actually create the repair. So all you need is essentially just this one line of code, which is a post operation and then create repair. And it tells you, and you can specify the body, which is the request body and a repair. This is a set of instructions to show to tell Copilot what it has to display to you in an adaptive card when it matches against this particular action. And then we have a similar thing for update repair. The only difference here is we actually have to pass a repair ID to identify the repair that we want to update, because that is the shape of the API. But as I'm talking about this, in the back of my head, I'm going, Rachit, where is the open API description? There's no open API description here. So the key thing here is we actually generate that for you. So you don't have to have an open API description to actually proceed with this for your API. There are some people at Microsoft who might be a little upset with what I just said, but we are helping people who don't, because writing open API descriptions are hard. And finally, we have the delete repair action as well here. And this is the model. This is what we use to represent a repair. Much in the same way of a connector. We had an ID, we had a title, we had a description. Okay, enough talking. Show me it in action. So I go into the agent's toolkit, and then I have to just click provision. This will essentially compile that typespec file into an internal manifest, the manifest.json, that is available to modify directly. It will generate the OpenAPI file. It will provision and sideload my agent so I can then access it inside M365 to Copilot. And as I was talking through this, I noticed that all the steps are done. So that is amazing. Thank you for cooperating with me today. So I'm going to go to Repairs Hub agent. This is exactly the same agent I just sideloaded. And I'm going to ask it to list all the repairs about oil. Because oil changes are really important on your cars, and they are the ones that make or break it. So I really care about that. And in here, I want to highlight a couple of things. Number one, this actually pulled the data from the connector as we had just ingested, and it gives you all the information that's needed. The other thing is we have this agent debug info field. And in here, I can actually see what capability was executed. So how many of you have gone in an agent like, I'm actually not sure if it used the capability. So that's something we aim to create more observability on. And so you can actually see that it selected the graph connector's capability and essentially the query as well. You can also see the set of actions that it used, or it was able to match against. All right, so now comes the scary part, at least for me, because I really hope this doesn't fail. But I want to update this repair. Actually, I want to just say assign, because I'm really keen to take on work. So I'm going to assign this repair to me. So what this is going to do is hopefully, it's able to grab the ID right from the context above. Notice there's no ID here. And then it's going to select the assign to field, which is my name. It's because that's my account that I'm logged in with. And I'm going to click confirm. That essentially gives you notification that it's going to reach out to the external API, and it's going to send that data over, which is just the ID and the assign to, and it's going to actually update it. And boom, it actually updated it, which is awesome. So I can see here that the assign to field was updated. Oh, sorry, this was way bigger than expected, but apparently all the changes look like that. So here's the executed action. So I can see here that update repair, which is the endpoint that actually does the update, has a 200 response. I can also see the details of the response here. So I'm not lying. This actually was updated. And yeah, that's how you use TypeSpec to easily build actions to not only in combination with connectors, ingest your data, but now you can act upon it. So I will pass it back to Seb now.
Thank you so much, Rachit. This is really cool to see the full loop, right? To ingest the data, to then updating the data. And what we're not showing is that actually the code that was indexing the data that Rachit was showing earlier has continued in the back end. And we already synchronized that new Rachit assignment inside. So if I go to Copilot, I can also ask again, who's assigned to the oil change? And it's going to tell me that it's Rachit in this case. So that's really, really cool. So as we wrap this session, I want to say on behalf of Rachit, Eran, all the team around us, thank you for your interest in building all of these crazy agents and bringing just more AI-driven solutions to your orgs. We have a ton of content still running this week, but the beauty of this week is everything is recorded. So there's a bunch of things that already happened that I invite you to go. BRK164 around how you can build declarative agents, BRK165 around all the types of agents you can build for Microsoft 365 Copilot. We have on-demand sessions that are only available online around how you can build connectors with the Agents Toolkit. Another one on how you can build declarative agents using the Agents Toolkit. And finally, we still have one lab running tomorrow around extending Copilot with declarative agents using the toolkit. So I want to thank you all. We're going to stay here. If you have any questions, feel free to come up front. Have a great rest of Build. Cheers, everybody.